Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on Facebook and Twitter. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by 10th Man, Paul Hall, Sleeping Warrior, Chocolate Saiyan, and Arwin in G+. Very good to have you all.
Hey. Hello. Good morning.
And we've also got a fair few people in Discord as well, so welcome to everyone on the Discord server. Hello.
Morning. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Nice to hear a little bit of interaction from the Discord server. Well,
yeah, it's not been bad recently, won't lie. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Reading.
Not from Barcelona.
This is a fantastic segue into Zen Garcia. Zen Garcia, if you're not familiar with him, he put out a challenge for anyone that could demonstrate that either there was measurable curvature or Earth was turning at a rate of more than 100 miles an hour. Not 1,000 miles an hour, just 100 will do. If you could prove that we were moving at more than 100 miles an hour, he'd pay somebody £15,000 or dollars. Somebody claimed the money, put the numbers into a computer of some kind, modeled it, and claimed the money. It went to court. It didn't go in the guy's favor. Zen Garcia was successful at successfully pointing out that he hadn't complied with the requirement to prove curve. Putting it into a computer wasn't proving curve. The guy didn't accept the judge's decision. He appealed it for a first time, and that was rejected. He appealed it for a second time, and the second time was rejected, and then all avenues of appeal were exhausted. Zen Garcia kept his money, and what we can learn from this is that if there is curvature, you can't measure it. Or it just doesn't exist. And alternatively, ballers will claim victory no matter how shit their evidence is. So if somebody's going to put numbers into a computer and reify some model, that's not going to wash in court. So it doesn't prove Zen Garcia does not prove that the Earth's flat. But what he does demonstrate is that reifying a model isn't going to win you in court, and ballers will claim victory no matter what happens. They'll claim victory at all costs. And ultimately, he got a decent judge, and the judge said that's not proving that the Earth's curved. So shout out to Zen Garcia. If you haven't checked his channel out, go and look on his channel. It's really good.
I want to echo that. Massive shout out to Zen, because now that the point of, the end, all avenues of appeal have been exhausted. So that's it. He's ended that little time of presumably a high stress time in his life, and he's fought it. And he's won. Good for you, Zen. Good for you. You're proving Earth's flat, and you're standing your ground. Dicks come along like they do here and present their reified models as proof of Earth curvature. It's gone through the court system, and it doesn't wash. No one's proving Earth curve with your reified models and your mathematics. It lost.
And just to contrast it with the most famous disagreement in this topic, when Rowbotham did his Bedford Levels experiment or his observation with telescopes, and then there was the fallout between John, what's his name now? John Hanson, or I can't remember his name now. There was two guys that had a fallout. One was called Wallace, and the other guy was called Hanford or something like that. And one of them ended up going to jail because one of them claimed victory. The baller claimed victory based on the effects of refraction. Hanford or whatever his name was now, I can't remember his name. He said you can't prove that the light's bending. This is just a just so story. And the judge agreed with the ball earther on that occasion. And Hanford, I think his name was, ended up in jail because he just simply couldn't accept that the guy was anything other than dishonest. And he ended up in jail. And the ballers like to tell us about that because Wallace ended up being victorious because he was able to successfully argue that bendy light was the key. And the judge agreed with him on that occasion. Well, this time it's gone in the favour of our side, which say that you can't reify curvature. So look into the Bedford Levels experiment if you want to read more about a really good or a detailed disagreement that ended up in one of the guys going to jail, because it is quite interesting.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No. Any ballers?
Sticks in the ground.
That does axial rotation, does it?
Yeah. They
How?
think so.
No.
How does sticks in the ground prove axial rotation?
Because of the sun angle and the stars are moving, right? So yeah.
No, they're measuring presupposed radius.
I know.
That's not rotation though.
Well, if you go with all those presuppositions, then it's only naturally concludable that the Earth rotates underneath the stars. So that's how that works
Not really.
for them.
Nah, not really. The original presupposition from Aristarchus is that you've got one physical body obscuring another physical body, and it's a shadow that's caused as a direct result of that. And in that presupposition, Earth is a physical body that can obscure another physical body. That's it. So he's making a presupposition of a sphere Earth. Then you go on to say, well, how big is this sphere Earth? And that's where you get Aristophanes. How do you say his name? Eratosthenes. I can never say it correctly. I'm sure everyone's in the same boat. Anyway, that's where you get the measuring of the presupposed sphere radius by way of the sun and its trajectory. But that at no point does that take you to the presupposition of Earth rotation.
No, but the rotating presupposition comes from that the globe of the heavens, the stars, rotate around the apparent sphere that it forms around the presumed ball Earth.
So it doesn't come from sticks in the ground then, no?
Right.
Say no.
I should say star rotation.
Fair enough. Star rotation. You won't say no, I was just wrong, but that's fine.
I did.
Okay, fair enough. Good on you. Got a totally different attitude on you today, I can tell already, Arwin.
Yeah.
So let's just be clear. Stars don't prove axial rotation, guys. We see two rotation points in the sky. It doesn't mean that we're on an axis rotating. It means that the sky appears to be turning like two whirlpools. If there was two vortexes in the sea, and you wouldn't claim that the Earth was turning just because there's two vortexes near each other. Well, that's the claim that they make, and we think it's nonsense.
However, if you want to see a last-ditch attempt to defend the presupposition of antipodal travel when observing the star rotations that are above us, then check out the JLB after show on Nathan Oakley channel. If you're watching this live, my second channel, Nathan Oakley, is linked below in the info box. And show 1049, the last hour of the show, literally the entire hour, is John Le Bon trying to beg the question of antipodal travel. In other words, to summarise this, when travelling out to the horizon on a flat plane, which you observe no curvature during this travel, you just observe a flat plane below you. However, if you assume that when you arrive at your destination, you're now antipodal from where you began, you can start making observations of the stars above you with the presupposition that the stars that were above you at the start of your journey are now under your own arse. Now, if you assume that when you travel a vast distance, that the stars that were formerly above your head are now under your own arse, you can say, because these stars do X, Y, and Z, I've just proved that the stars that I presumed were under my own arse are actually under my own arse, now that I've travelled antipodal when I assumed I travelled antipodal. And JLB tries to fight that argument for about an hour. At the end, whether or not he was trolling in the last 10 minutes because he got it but just didn't want to seem stupid by continuing to argue the point back and forth with anti-clockwise, clockwise, non-directions, relative directions, just so it wasn't conceded fast that he just penny dropped, he had his penny drop moment during that show. But nonetheless, obfuscation aside, it was pretty blatant by the end of that show that you can't just assume you're travelling antipodal from whence you began and then make observations of the lights in the sky declaring that it proves that you've travelled antipodal in your assumption at the beginning of your journey. It doesn't work to assume your outcome. It's called begging the question. When you formulate that begging the question fallacy into, if I travel on a sphere, then I'll observe star rotation underneath my own arse, then I travel on a sphere and observe star rotation under my own arse, therefore it's under my own arse, is just a begging the question fallacy on steroids, otherwise known as an affirming the consequent formal logical fallacy. But takes 5 minutes to summarise the arguments and how they're formulated. Took an hour for JLB to actually get the point that he's begging the question of a model, a reification fallacy. So a whole string of them, reification fallacies, begging the question fallacies, affirming the consequent fallacies, a few others. I forget the others. Oh, burden of proof reversal fallacy, telling us what it proves and implies when you go and travel these vast distances. There was a whole string of them. It's just, I laugh because JLB likes to profess to being good at logical fallacies, and he typically isn't bad until he comes here. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Can't even define it, Nathan. Some people still say it's a force. Shout outs to Fight the Flat Earth, who still tells people now that it's a force. Einstein replaced it in 1915 with his publication on the theory of general relativity, which states that it's not a force. But Craig still tells everybody it is. Yeah, everybody else in science tells you it's the effects of the bending of space-time. And Craig will never, ever concede the point. So shout out to Fight the Flat Earth.
But before
I think at this point, their priesthood gave them full permission to think about it, whatever they want.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
That where's chocolate when you need him?
He is here.
Right here.
You should have retracted that chocolate. You let me down then.
Shout out retracted.
Yeah, that's it.
Shout out Craig.
So
anyway,
I actually want to give a shout out to that dude Mitchell from Australia. He just dropped a video about how gravity is not a force. I guess some baller came at him and was kind of triggered about his use of the words entropy and second law of thermodynamics and shit like that. So he dropped a pretty good video. It's got a couple of citations, good ones from that gravity's not a force. He's got George Mooser in there, Brian Cox, all the priests saying that it's not a force. So check it out.
So before I move on and summarise it, anybody actually got any scientific evidence of gravity?
No scientific.
They can't even come to a consensus on what the definition is, let alone prove it.
Okay, well, as rightly pointed out, it's not a force, but the current line of pseudoscience is Einsteinian, which is to say that it's the bending of a conceptual medium known as space-time. The fourth dimension. Woo! Well, you bend that fourth dimension, which is conceptual, and it gives rise to a not actual force known as gravity. And that not actual force is not forcing, holding, pushing, pulling, doing anything of any type of force nature, because it's not a force. So first and foremost, it definitely isn't holding gas pressure without a container. But is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without that necessary antecedent of a container to press upon? For all of those, especially people in Discord, fundamentalist religious zealots who believe the sky is a vacuum, any evidence you can have gas without a container?
No.
It's gravity. It's gravity, even though technically, according to their calculations, the presumption of what gravity should be, if it is some kind of force, which they still say it kind of is, it's a weaker force, remember? Even that doesn't work. So even in their model, they never managed to actually fix the issue. It's so silly.
Elijah's flashing away. Sorry.
In other words,
hold on,
no.
one second. Go on, Elijah. I had you on mute for some reason. I don't know if you left and came back. Go ahead.
I was kind of excited because I had saw a copy of Total Recall yesterday. So, well, my girl did, so she bought it, and I sat watching it this morning, and it's just so crazy because at the very beginning, when he starts his mental journey, and this is that movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger where he is a special agent on Mars or some shit. So the thing is that they explain, welcome to Mars. We have created domes to protect you from the vacuum outside.
No way.
Yeah. Can you not remember Total? You not remember Total Recall?
And so the only reason let's jump forward to the end of the movie that they get oxygen is because the aliens have built some type of machine that heats up the core. But it still doesn't explain how the oxygen that's created from that would contain all the air anyway. So that's a contradiction. But the fact that they need a dome to breathe is not.
Yeah, you need a dome.
Well, maybe Martian gravity.
That's only on Mars, though, right? They didn't say anything about needing a dome on
No.
Earth, right?
It's a vacuum everywhere in their model.
Yeah,
everywhere is a vacuum.
course.
It's Mars is just the ground, but the air, the outside is the vacuum of space everywhere, no matter what planet you're on.
Okay, so outer space is fake. The gas we breathe here would fill the vacuum. So is there any evidence that we could have the gas pressure we are all breathing if the sky is a vacuum? I.e., there is no containment. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container?
No.
Dome in the example of Total Recall.
What vacuum?
Yeah, what vacuum? Yeah, what vacuum? The sky is not a vacuum. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Wait a minute, before you move on, I want to clarify something from yesterday. I asked the question is how do you explain how you can have a hole in a gas? Remember that from ozone? I want to be clear. The nature of gas, it will want to fill the available volume. So yes, gas may have holes in it per se, but a hole typically is represented in a solid material, not a gaseous material. So the gas would technically fill the hole if there was one. So technically it's not a hole. There's no such thing as a hole in a gas.
Nothing but holes. It's completely unbonded.
Also,
so it's just nothing but a particle with stuff between it. Air, gases are unbonded. So it's just a whole series of holes. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly. I just wanted to be clear. Move on.
Sure, but with the exception of dynamic systems, we're nearly there, mate. We're nearly there. With the exception of dynamic systems, because I don't want some arsehole in the comments pointing at clouds and going, there you go, that one's got a hole in it. It's like, yeah, but that's in constant flux. It's a dynamic system. So in that regard, you could have to demonstrate gas pressure gradients with dynamic systems without a container. It's, you can strap on as many factors as you like, but the first instance is having gas pressure. Then you'd have a gas pressure gradient. So saying gas pressure dynamic system gradient, it doesn't make any difference. You still need something for pressing on to have gas pressure. And the assertion that it can just hang around until it gets to the sky vacuum, nah, that ain't happening.
Yeah, holes in clouds. How do we have clouds in the first place?
Yeah, first off,
let's just be really clear as well. The 14.7 psi that we breathe at the sea level is directly next to the atmosphere, the vacuum that they tell us is space. There's nothing stopping the 14.7 from pushing the 14.6 that pushes the 14.5. All of it's pushing away from the surface of the container that the gas pressure is pushing against. There's no gradient that's permitted. You can't do it. So unless they can demonstrate this magical bit of nonsense wizardry, then it's just another fanciful story. It's a baseless assertion, and you need to ram it down their throats because they're just deniers. They're just literally science deniers.
Go on, Elijah. Go ahead. Seriously? Hello? And you've just interrupted about 3 people, and now I've left a massive gap and you're not saying a word. Seriously?
Oh, okay. Hey, sorry. Yeah. So, inversely, when they turn on this react core thing, when all of the oxygen is filling the air. As before, when you shot a hole through the glass of the dome, all of the air would rush out. Obviously, when they turned on this reactor, all of the air rushed in and crushed all the glass, and everyone who was about to die because they turned their air supply off, they all of a sudden started to breathe. Air started to rush into everybody's lungs and shit. So it's like, it's obvious.
So gas acting like gas.
Well, no, in that instance,
Going
gas
from
was
a
acting
higher
like...
pressure to a lower pressure.
No, in Total Recall, the gas behaves in two different ways. In one scene, they shoot out the dome on Mars, and the gas all expands outwards and just dissipates, leaving them with no gas. Then they turn on a reactor. He puts his stupid two fingers together so he's got a three-fingered claw thing, presses this big giant dome-shaped button. The dome goes down, the reactors turn on, and all the gas is created from whatever system that it's creating it. These plungers go into the rocks and gas pours out. But does it pour out and fill the available volume like it did when it was pouring out of the dome shape? No. It clings to the ground. It rolls along like dry ice and just stays there. It doesn't dissipate into the vacuum like it did when it was coming out of a dome, but because it's coming out of the rocks, it's just going to cling to the side of the rocks when it comes to the surface. Well, no, in the same way as a piece of glass shattering in their dome example, the gas just goes out and just fills the void and dissipates, forever lost to space, getting ever and ever further apart from each molecule. Well, in the example where they release it from the ground, well, no, it all clings together like water and just sticks to the side, demolishing things as it does so, not dissipating into the sky vacuum. Oh, no. So it's just a complete contradiction in terms in that particular instance with Total Recall. It obeys the second law, and entropy increases when they shoot out the glass of a dome. It completely disobeys it and starts behaving like bloody water and sticking to the side of the rocks when it's coming out of the ground because it's part of the plot in the movie. Anyway, any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No.
Hey, Ranty.
Hey.
Hey. Anybody? Any evidence of the distance to the sun? Bundy's in the chat. I've got a number attached to this. They should just be able to rattle it off with a mere Google search.
I think they just calculate it and they accept it, Nathan. They don't need to measure it. They just accept it based on calcs.
Interesting. It's one of those questions that literally a Google search should get you the answer. Surely someone could give us a number. I'm sure there's people who've never watched the show before watching this part going, I know what the distance is.
I've got something.
4 million miles, Nathan.
Hold on. Got a contender.
64 million miles, Nathan.
64?
Yeah.
How'd you come to that number? 64?
I've just made it up.
Oh, okay.
It was calculated based on the diameter of a cream egg. And the cream egg's round, so obviously the Earth must be round.
That's an excellent logical fallacy.
No, it's based on a cream egg, Nathan. You've got to be a moron to think that a cream egg wouldn't be round.
If I was JLB, I'd say that was a false equivalence.
Oh.
It's not. It's just another stupid model. Cream egg, globe Earth, same difference. It's just a model that you make up.
Model, that was a good example. Dick Earth model.
Yeah, Dick Earth model. It's just a model. I mean, if I can make the stars match up with a dick model, then clearly the Earth's a dick, right? It's just a model, but I'm going to presuppose Earth's a dick, then make my light in the sky example, and then say that the example of the lights in the sky matches my dick model, and then the Earth's a dick.
And then when
reasonable.
I say globe model, I'm going to wonder why people think I mean hemispheres. Slightly forgetting that globe model has hemispheres.
Anyway, we could go on and on about JLB and his faux pas, but there we go. Any evidence of any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics in their entire histories?
No, Dr. Danny Faulkner's degree or doctorate is not based on actual science. It's based on pseudoscience.
I like that typically we've attributed certain questions to certain personalities, if you will. So, gas pressure without a container gets attributed to Conspiracy Cats for his quote, or quotes, without the balloon there is no pressure, without the container there can be no pressure. Those quotes get attributed to him when it comes to gas pressure without a container assertions from the heliocentric side. In terms of the any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology or astrophysics, it's always going to get attributed to Dr. Daniel Faulkner because of his outrageous assertions that we flat earthers just go and Google search stuff when we assert that we couldn't debunk flat earth. And it's preposterous, according to Dr. Daniel Faulkner, to just go and Google search something. He knows the answers. And then when asked how can you have gas pressure, coincidentally, without a container, he went and did a little Google search and came across a little redneck retard called Hillbilly Blueballs, otherwise known as Blue Marble Science, who demonstrated gas pressure in 2 containers, with the title Gas Pressure Without a Container. So he was immediately guilty of his own claim that we're guilty of by way of projection. So Dr. Daniel Faulkner, guilty of his own claim, went out and Google searched it, found a redneck retard that had a title of a YouTube video saying gas pressure without a container, presumably didn't even watch the video. And if he did, and he says, yeah, of course I watched the video, well, why are you so stupid as to not recognise the 2 containers in the video then? So he's either stupid or just arrogant, most likely stupid.
It gets worse though. Don't forget his biggest crime for me was when he said that I know all the answers. I've never found a question I wasn't able to address. And then when he wrote his whole paragraph, his whole chapter in his book about gravity and how gravity is a force, for some reason he never mentioned Einstein. You know, the inconvenient science that doesn't support gravity being a force anymore. For some reason he didn't mention him in the whole chapter of the book. Yet he's supposed to know all the answers, but never once cited the current science. I find that just unbelievable. It's like, how could you get away with that?
And last but by no means least, Nathan Thompson put the first, to my knowledge, public question to him. How can you have gas pressure without a container? And he didn't give an answer.
Yeah, sat there looking like a rabbit in between the headlights.
Can a rumpus have the curved question?
Curve question?
You hear me?
Any proof of curvature or any signs of curvature?
Yeah, we hear you, whoever said that. Has he had that question? I'm sure he's been asked that question before, yeah. Why'd you ask, Renty?
Is it okay if I change?
Because what would he say if we said, is there any proof of curvature?
He'd say curve is flat, wouldn't he?
He would. It's flat, flat, flat.
It's flat. It's flat.
We've only got a couple more questions, Babs, then we'll round our housekeeping. Unless you wanted to ask QE something anyway, didn't you? He's not here yet.
It's probably going to show up later on. I could ask you the same question too, if you want.
Okay, I'll just round out housekeeping then. Any evidence of any signs of any self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Shout out to Paul Voigt that claims that he's got it, but we're not allowed to read it because he thinks that we won't understand it. Been waiting for it for like 2 years.
Yeah, literally since 2017, we've been waiting for Paul to come back with that.
Yeah, it was about debate 90, if I remember rightly, Nathan. Maybe it was 100. Just after the Isle of Man stuff, or towards the end of it, and Paul said that the molten iron core stuff was, he's got the evidence for it, and we're like, yeah, okay, can we see it? No. Why? Because you won't understand it. All right, okay. Let us know when we're intelligent enough to understand it then.
More like 3 years. It's been 3 Christmases since then. This is the 3rd Christmas since then. I only know because I did a Christmas special around that time, which I repeated last year, and for those of you watching that may be appreciative of this, we've already recorded the Christmas specials now for this year. But nevertheless, my point is that there's been 3 Christmases, so it's probably knocking on for 3 years, if not more.
Shout out to Paul, because he's, I think, the originator of this question.
Last but by no means
evidence
least.
of a molten iron core.
Shout out retracted.
But yeah, in terms of although it was about gas pressure without a container, the same applies to Dr. Daniel Faulkner. You know, any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics will be attributed to him. You know, that's why that question came after that debacle with him saying, "Oh, these flat earthers, they say they can't debunk the flat Earth claims, but all they've really done is gone out and done a Google search. How sad are they? How do you have gas pressure without a container, Dr. Daniel Faulkner? Total silence. Day or two later, here's my results from Google. I've found a retard saying you can have it by title on a video. Anyway, any evidence of the R value? Earth radius, last but by no means least.
You've seen it on the telly.
R values on the telly?
Yeah.
R values? Earth radius values?
Pictures from space, Nath.
We've covered this. Space is fake. You can't have gas pressure without a container. The gas we breathe would fill the space. Ergo, space is fake. You can't have pictures from a fake place. It's Narnia.
Is it not real then?
No. If you've got pictures that are coming from a fake place, they're automatically fake.
But they're on the telly.
Those pictures themselves are reified R values. Because if they didn't have it, they wouldn't have a ball. So every time they show you that ball Earth, that's a reified R value right there. Begging the question in your face.
Yeah. But the pictures that are being claimed in this specific instance have come from a fake place. Outer space is fake. We couldn't have a sky vacuum, as claimed in the heliocentric model, models being something we don't live on. Nevertheless, that model says the sky's a vacuum. The sky can't be a vacuum because the gas we breathe would fill it.
What vacuum?
The sky is not a vacuum.
The
Go on, Babs. Mike is all yours, Babs.
Okay. Yeah, last week you guys were talking about matter. You can't create or destroy matter. So I just wanted to know what is matter? How do you define matter? Is this thing on? Oh, no, I don't think I can.
Come
hear
on, Arwin.
anybody.
Where's Arwin when you want him?
I was waiting for somebody else.
Yeah, we're here.
Stuff with physicality, physical stuff.
Oh, okay.
There you go, physical stuff.
Yeah, that's how I looked at the definition, and that's what
Physical
I was
stuff.
thinking when I said it. Physical substance in general, a distinction from mind or spirit. In physics, that which occurs, occupies space, possesses rest mass, especially as distinct from energy. What is energy? That's another question.
Okay. So would you consider like cells the smallest structural and functional unit of an organism to be part of matter?
Yes.
It's made up of matter.
Up of matter, okay. Have you heard of cellular mitosis or cellular apoptosis?
Yeah, mitosis is the division of cells that is really the multiplication of, but they call it division. So really you're watching cells become, say you've got 2 cells, they become 4 cells 20 minutes later, but they for some reason call that division. But to anybody with half a brain, it's clearly multiplication. And it's creation before your very eyes. You previously had 2, now you've got 4.
Nah, that's division.
Nobody
That's
did
division.
anything.
I can't let you have that. If you've got a donut and I take a knife to it in 2 axes, have I then got a multiplication of that donut? I've now got 4 donuts. Well, no.
Yeah, but in mitosis, you don't end up with 4 half cells. You end up with 4 cells, like 2 brand new ones.
Well,
And
technically,
isn't that the creation of matter right there, right before your eyes?
I
no,
completely agree.
not the creation of matter. Sorry.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
The cell takes
it
in
is.
matter from the environment, then the DNA is replicated. So they basically make a copy through the combination of proteins and all that fun stuff. And in a sense, it's duplicated. So,
Yeah,
but
but that
it's not
copy
creating
wasn't
matter.
You get a
before.
new cell
Not
out of
crea-
that replication process.
Hold on, Babs. Carry on, Paul.
You're not creating new matter.
Yeah, you
The
are.
matter is in. No, you're not.
Yeah, you are. You
Okay.
previously had 2 cells, and now you've got 4. Magically, 20 minutes later.
Hold on. I've got to side with Paul. No. There's no new matter being created. It's being divided. like with your donut.
No.
Now, the fact that the
It's new
donut
matter.
is then
It's
swelling
new
back.
matter. Those new ones become old ones, and then they can reproduce as well in time.
But see, the thing is, you're not
You're
getting.
creating new cells.
They're taking in matter from the environment,
So what?
processing it, and duplicating and replicating the DNA and the structure of the cell itself. It's not creating new matter; it's duplicating it.
Hold on, Paul. Let me just get clarity. Are you saying that cell division is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics? Is that your claim?
Me or
no, not you.
I would say it's
hold
a
on,
violation.
Anthony. Hold on. Let me just get it. I've just got to summarize it again now. Would you say that cell division is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics, Babs?
Yes, I would. Yeah, because you're creating matter, brand new matter.
I agree.
But you're not creating new matter.
Yeah, you are.
No, you're
Hold on.
rearranging.
We've all given our positions now. Hold on,
Paul.
Paul, I don't need it all repeating again. Does anybody else have an opinion on this matter? So far, me and Paul have one opinion, and Babs and Anthony have another. Now, obviously, I'm just going to restate I'm right, Paul? And so is Babs and Anthony. But does anybody else have an opinion at the moment on this?
Okay, yes.
Go ahead, Elijah.
Yeah. So why is what you're thinking newly created matter? Why would you not follow that logic and then say, well, someone giving birth is creating new matter? Because someone would take your logic and create that argument.
That is their argument. That is their argument. Their argument is when...
new matter.
That's their argument. When a woman plops out a baby, they've just created new matter and violated the first law. That's what they're arguing.
Yeah, they have. They definitely have created new matter by giving birth.
No, I would argue that they've just transformed
existing matter,
all sorts of things
you
into
maintain the original matter,
different form.
You're getting rumpus. You're getting rumpus by someone who opposes you. Hold on, Anthony. Different opinions so far. We've got 3 for 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that flatulent unicorn just speaking? Go ahead. Anthony rumpused you because you were disagreeing with him.
Flatulent unicorn, it's your hit. Go.
I think that might have been me.
Second time this has happened today. Somebody gets interrupted or interrupts, and then you give them the mic. Total silence.
Okay, let me walk it through again. Let's look at different perspective. If I light a fire, am I creating new matter with the smoke and carbon monoxide?
No, you're destroying matter.
No, I'm converting matter.
You can't.
Converting it from one substance to another.
No. We've got a fundamental misunderstanding. What is the first law, Anthony? What's the first law of thermodynamics?
Matter can neither be created nor destroyed.
So what happens when you burn a piece of wood? You're telling me it can't be burnt and destroyed? This is obviously an immediate violation of the first law, isn't it?
In that context, I would agree that that's neither new matter or destroying old matter. I would say that is converting.
The log's gone. It vanished. It was a log. Now it's nothing. It's dust. It's gone. The log's vanished. We had some heat in between. The heat went into the air, but let's ignore that bit where it transfers energy into a different state. But the log's gone, therefore violating the first law, right?
No, I don't agree in that context.
Oh, well, the woman plops out a baby. So that's creating new matter, right? Also a first law violation. It's not built it up with eating cakes in my wife's case.
No, I still see that as creating new matter.
No.
From cake?
From cake.
Okay, so eating cake, having sex, first law violation. Gotcha.
I know, but when you look at cellular mitosis, as correctly identified by our friend here, you see literally the most basic of basic organisms. You can't get any more simple than cells, and you see one become two right before your very own eyes. No interaction with
no. That's not what you see. I don't see one, and then next to it another one appears. That would be a first law violation. I see one split and be roughly the same size, but then they grow a bit and then maybe split again. But at one point it's just a split down the middle from something that was one becoming two slightly smaller things.
Yeah, but if you watch it over a period of time, you end up with 15 and then 20 and then 90 and then 260 and then 5,000. Before you know it, you're inundated with them all.
Yeah,
that
let
is,
me ask you. Let
they
me ask you
split
one question,
and grow,
Anthony.
split and grow,
Hang on.
split and grow. You're not seeing another dot appear next to it and then combine with it, because that would violate.
are. That's exactly what you see.
Hold on.
Don't.
Let me ask-
That's not what you see. Go on, Paul.
Let me
Sorry.
ask Anthony a question. Are those cells taking in matter from the environment?
No.
What?
Interesting. That's
I boiled it down already with cake. I thought I oversimplified it enough already with cake.
I don't think the cells are taking in anything. They're self-replicating. They
No
don't take
cake
anything.
then. No cake needed.
Yeah, but they've got a cell membrane. They've got a cell membrane that acts like a dome over a flat Earth, right? And it protects.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, wait a minute. Let's talk about that membrane for a second. That membrane has proteins and different structures on top of it to take in substances from the environment and remove substance from inside the cell, the toxicity. The only way the cell has to have substance to do any, like, why do you eat then, Anthony? Why do you eat? Because if you don't take any substance in from the environment, then you need to stop eating right now.
I'm going to look at what is the function of the cell membrane.
One last point. So you appreciate that you create quite a lot of skin throughout your lifetime. You reproduce it, you shed it, you reproduce it. Is the production of skin cells a first law violation? Replicated it didn't exist, now it does. It's grown from nothing. It was just a skin cell. One dies, another one reproduces from another skin cell. The process is completed with a new skin cell forming. Get my words out. So but in your mind, it's not because you've had some pizza and that process is continually creating new skin cells. In that example, like when a baby's splitting cells, creating new ones, that's not a violation when it's your skin, but it is when it's a baby because it plops out, one becomes two.
Functions of the cell membrane. Cell membranes are vital for the normal functioning of all the cells in our bodies. Their main functions consist of 5 points. It says forming a continuous, highly selective barrier both around cells and intercellular compartments, allowing the control of an enclosed chemical environment important to maintain ion gradients, communication both with the extracellular and extraorganelle space, recognition, including recognition of signaling molecules, adhesion proteins, and other host cells, signal generation in response to a stimulus creating a change in membrane potential.
I mean, you said it more complicated, but I said it more simply. The cell membrane is designed to allow stuff in and take stuff out.
Well,
you basically said the whole thing, just what I just said.
It says forming a continuous, highly selective barrier both around cells and intercellular compartments.
There's some things in the environment that are detrimental to the cell, and there's some things that are beneficial to the cell.
Where's that?
Okay. Allow the beneficial things in and
Adam,
keep
if
the
you're
bad
watching,
things
help
out.
us. Help us, Adam.
What I'll say is I'll agree if there's a citation that says that.
Okay. Give me a second.
I'm not saying this is to be an asshole. I'm just saying that the way I see it, it's to isolate it.
It is. It's the main purpose of a cell is to contain the substance of the cell, which means if all the components of the cell where there was no cell membrane, they would basically diffuse into the surrounding environment. So the cell membrane is designed to protect the contents of the cell, but it's also designed
to be fair, Paul, this one says the cell membrane gives the cell its structure and regulates the materials that enter and leave the cell.
That's what I just said.
That does indicate that it's porous.
Do what?
That does indicate that it is porous. So does that
right? There's a certain amount of diffusion occurs. Water will go in, certain different things will diffuse in, but there's also things.
Is the cell interacting with the environment? It must be based on what I've just read.
That's what I just said.
But Anthony read it with a lot of word salad, read off an introduction to microbiology or whatever it was he was reading, which now means he can basically segue from one position to the other without anyone really noticing, which is very slick.
No,
Okay, now
all right.
Yeah, how
if I
high
have to
pitched that no was.
state-
No, you say. So
if I have to expressly state to the audience that I've read new material and changed my opinion, then that's what I need to do to make it clear.
So does the creation of skin violate the first law?
The creation of skin.
Yeah,
Violate
your
the first-
skin cells. You eat a pizza. A few weeks later, you might
No,
create a new few. Right. So those new cells aren't violating natural law, but when a baby's cell splits and creates new ones, it is violating the first law.
I would say not, based on what I've just read.
Right.
Cell
A
mitosis
form of
happens.
mitosis is
Hold on,
violating-
Babs is
But a
piping
basic
up because
level, skin
he's
level.
lost his compadre. Go ahead, Babs.
Any form of cellular mitosis is a violation of the first law of thermodynamics.
No, it isn't. Didn't we just go through this? Weren't you listening? Have you just done a Brenda and just reasserted the claim after we've just pummeled it for the last 20 minutes?
Hey, Nathan, let's go a little
What
bit
you're
more
saying
basic.
is that what you're
Go a little
saying
bit
is
more
that
basic.
since
Hold on,
those
Paul,
new
let him share his
cells
pain.
were created, saying is that since those new cells were created from an original cell, that it's not matter being created out of nothing. Is that what your stance is?
Energy changing state, changing form. The creation is not a new piece of energy come out of nowhere. That's not how it works. It's just changing state.
Perhaps why do you eat?
Okay. That's a little bit.
Well, here, wait a minute. Let's slow down. Let's slow down. Your body takes in nutrients. It processes those nutrients, whether it be fat, amino acids, carbohydrates, all this stuff. It takes that. The cell takes that takes that stuff in, process it, converts it, changes it, and produces proteins, hormones, structures for the cell, structures for the neurotransmitters, hormones. That's what the cell does. It processes the nutrients in the environment to produce different things. And part of that mitosis, part of that is to replicate. So the cell takes in nutrients, processes it, and replicates the DNA, the structures inside this own cell to be able to mitose or break down and become two other things.
Right.
It's real simple.
It's no different to a building contractor with a blueprint gathering up materials like bricks and building a house. Because there wasn't a house there and now there is, after mechanics have been put in place to move bricks around and stack them on top of each other, that's all that's happening.
To be more specific, you can't create matter out of thin air. You need precursors in order to do that.
In the same way, in my analogy, the bricks don't just magically come from nowhere. Now, a brick isn't a house. In the same way, whatever matter that was just being described by Paul in his list of proteins or sugars or acids or whatever it is you're acquiring from the outside, to have a machine process, literally, physically, like a machine, actually make that into something or cause replication. Well, that's a process that requires internal energy and energy dispersion along the way. Well, those are all just transfers of energy. Nothing's being physically created or destroyed. It's just changing. I said state, but that's the wrong word. But the matter, the energy is changing where it is. It's not dying out or coming into existence from nothing.
Well, here, let's go basic one more time. Let's do a little bit more biology. Every time you eat, protein is what your muscles are made out of. Okay, when you eat an egg, like I just ate eggs this morning, there's proteins in there. There's building blocks inside that egg that when I eat that egg, the stomach acids inside my body break those down into their more basic components, and then my cells inside my stomach and inside the rest of my body take those minerals, those basic building blocks, and turn that egg into my muscle or any other protein that's needed in the body.
So are we all clear? No violations of the first law of thermodynamics when things get replicated biologically?
I get it. Yep. Makes a lot of sense.
Excellent question, Babs. Just give Babs a bit of kudos. Excellent question.
Can I hang on before we rule out the No, can I just clarify that this is based on actual empirical evidence rather than rhetorical theory that they base it on logic and reason?
Yeah, cake. I said it right at the beginning. I've watched it happen. Cake goes in, baby comes out, along with other liquids.
I know, but ballers would say that cake causes baby with that line of reasoning.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of what else happened, okay? Not on this show.
What I mean is it based
No, Tony.
or is it based on logically and reasonably so that it doesn't break the rules of thermodynamics? I mean, what happens if the first rule of thermodynamics is simply to negate the effects of God creating shit?
Tony?
It doesn't negate it. It supports it for a start. How do you think hold on. Did you just say to stop the first law negating creation? No, it supports it.
It seems to me that the whole premise of science is to rule out the idea that God is the creator of all. Okay. Now, whether God is or is not is a debatable question. But my question is the law that the point that you made about eating cakes and causing growth, cell division, or whatever, is that empirically tested and proven to be true, or is it based on logic and reason and rhetoric?
No.
Here, let me help. I love this one. I'm going to use your house analogy. I'm going to put all the material that's necessary for a house on this lot. I'm going to put the nails. I'm going to put the boards. I'm going to put the bricks. I'm going to put the concrete. I'm going to put the steel rebar, and I'm going to put it in the middle of a field. All the necessary pieces are there for that house. How long will it take all the necessary pieces for that house to come together and form a house?
Well, you definitely need some donuts for the guys that are going to build the house. They're going to need energy, aren't they?
Coffee, maybe pizza a couple days a week, right?
Maybe some plans, maybe some DNA.
Yeah, maybe a blueprint, maybe. What do you think a blueprint would be necessary? Would help?
Yeah, that'll take energy as well. You're going to need a lot of energy. Lots and lots and lots of energy. Might need fuel for the machinery, might need electricity. All sorts of energy is going to be needed.
There's something else that's got to happen too. You got to have births, because you got to have these men that come from people to put those things together.
Damn you. You're going to hijack a point I was going to make after this, but it seems like you and I are of like mind and you're going the same place as I. So you've got to have the stuff in the first place, right, Paul?
Yeah, you've got to have the mechanism in place to process the information. So where does the mechanism come from?
No, not the mechanism, the stuff, right? So all of these processes in terms of replicating, having plans, making stuff, expelling energy into builders to make a cell in equivalence, by the analogy that you're using with a house. Well, in all of those processes, to begin any of them, you needed the dirt to begin with, right? But all of the processes we watch, and based on this natural law that holds true always, that you can't destroy the energy, it just transfers. You can't create the energy, it just transfers from one thing to another. In this instance, a huge amount of energy, excavating rock, turning it into bricks, having builders build machinery to build the house. All of that energy was just transferred from one thing into an end result, a house. Yeah, and a lot of sweat in between. Anyway, heat, my point. Anyway, in all of those examples, you needed the dirt in the first place. So where did we get the dirt in the first place? The rocks, the bricks, where did it all come from in the first place? If by every single process we observe always, all we see is a transfer of energy. Well then...
Maybe it just always existed.
What do you mean always existed?
I'm just applying what, was it Earth Flattener said, or Flatzoid, or whoever, I can't remember who it was, but one of the guys claimed that maybe it just always existed.
I wanted to keep this on to the first law. No, because of the second law. Do we have to go there? Yeah. We've got a constantly increasing entropy. Entropy is always going in one direction. It's increasing constantly. Well, just by implication, that means you've got a starting point. If all of the energy is constantly dissipating out, then you've got to have had a starting point for that energy to start dissipating from. Ergo, there was a beginning. But beyond that very crude, simplistic, I don't want to go through the second law when we're talking about the first law. We're talking about the creation or destruction of energy.
Okay.
But I'm only addressing the fact that you're saying that that goes against the idea that it was created in the first instance. And I'm saying, well, where'd you get the stuff from in the first instance? If the stuff that we're saying is transferring in its energy state, with the lots of examples and analogies given, where does the stuff come from if we're only ever observing the energy transferring from one place to another? Where'd you get the dirt?
The total energy in the first place.
Where'd you get the dirt? Where'd you get to have the dirt be an energy, if you will, and it being transferred in one form or another constantly? It's not being created in the same way the baby's not creating matter. It's just a transfer from cake and other things. But in the example, you've still got stuff to begin with. You've still got the materials on hand to make the cake, to have it transfer its energy from one place to another, go on its merry journey. So where'd you get the
materials are in the highest state of entropy?
Where did we get the stuff in the first place?
Yeah.
But
I see.
You've got to have a beginning. That's the point. Well, if you have a beginning and you can't create or destroy energy, it must have been created.
Yeah, I agree.
And actually, I was trying to get to something too, that even though you may have the material, you may have all the pieces, you can have all the necessary components, but if you don't have a process or an instruction manual to know how to properly arrange those components, nothing will function. Like, I can have a sawmill that can process the lumber into, or the trees into lumber, but the mill doesn't create the house. You still need some instruction to even know how to turn the tree into the right kind of piece of wood to make the house. There's instruction. So and know the sequence. There's a sequence, number, proportion, and timing. Like, I can't put the roof on before I build the foundation. It won't work. You have to build the foundation, put the walls up, and then put the roof on. So there's an instruction process. So even the construction of a cell or anything, any process, which means in the human body or anything else, there has to be instruction, and there has to be information and intelligence.
Right. I'll summarize that just for the live audience. And to have information, you need a knower. So without a knower, there can be no information. So that's the conclusion of Paul's point in that regard. So with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you who tuned in live on the Nathan Oakley 1980 live stream. I think there was a couple of people who smashed the super chat, actually. Let's shout those out while I've still got a few minutes left on this live stream before I run over. So shout out to Dale West Watson, who says, shout out to Dearth in the chat. Oh, I hope you're all on your best behaviour if the boss was around. Shout out to you, Dale West Watson, for smashing the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Also, shout out to Awaken Narrative, who says, I suppose, after all of this, what really matters, in quotes, is it's still flat. Thank you very much indeed for your support, Awaken Narrative. Really appreciate it. Once again, another massive thank you to all of you who did tune in on the Nathan Oakley 1980 Premium stream. And of course, a massive thank you to all of today's Discord and G Plus panels for making this live show possible. Stay tuned if you are watching on Nathan Oakley Premiering stream, as there will be an after show to follow. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!